Hi, I'm Bree. Welcome to Sustainably Balanced Equine. And this is Ollie. He is a quarter horse gelding, and I'm going to be taking him through a barefoot rehab. So that means I'm going to be pulling steel shoes off of his feet. He currently is shod on all four. I just wanted to show his rehab and kind of the process and what it looks like to help other people understand how much barefoot can support their horses and that they may not necessarily need shoes, because this is a gelding I don't have a lot of information on. I'm not sure if he's going to be sore when I pull the shoes off or not, and I'm also going to talk about how I address that if he is. So I'm really looking forward to it. So a lot of the time with horses, especially if they have hoof issues, they will also have teeth issues because the teeth are very proprioceptive. So I wanted to make sure his teeth were squared away before I pulled his shoes off, and just to make sure that his body is really capable of going through the hoof rehab. And I also changed a lot about his diet. He is on a forage-based diet, and currently he is receiving as much orchard hay as he can eat, and also about half a pound of Timothy pellets and some California trace pellets. And what the California trace pellets do is they give them extra building blocks in their cells and in their nutrition to actually grow a better foot. So I feel like that's super important. And if he is sore, the plan is either to put casts on him, or to put some hoof boots on him, just depending on how sore he is and what's going on, because he does have low heels in both of his hinds, and sometimes it can be difficult to make a hoof grow more if they already have something that's low. So I'm really looking forward to getting into it. I'll just be showing you what his feet look like right now. He is having a blast right now. I'm just going to be showing you what his feet look like right now, and also how he moves, and then also the before and after of when I pull his shoes off. And I've had him for about a week. Normally I wouldn't have waited, but I decided to wait this time because, wow, he's yawning like crazy. I decided to wait this time just because I didn't want to change too many variables at once. He did just move here, and that alone is a really big change when it comes to horses, especially with their hooves, because the hoof is adaptable and responds to their environment. So I wanted to make sure to give him some letdown time, and also and another thing that's really cool about what I do with horses is I also do craniosacral body work. And what the craniosacral does is it allows me to work with their body via the nervous system to help them reprogram anything going on in their movement that they're compensating for, or just have imbalances like natural asymmetries, just like people do. And to basically reprogram that. So we're taking his whole body and we're doing an overhaul, and I'm just really looking forward to sharing this with you guys, because this is what I do for my profession, and I feel like it's really fun to be able to take in a horse that has literally zero of any of this going on, so then I can really show that you can tweak the variables, and you can even take your horse barefoot using this same modality and hopefully keep them from going super lame, because you have to treat the whole horse when it comes to hoof care, and I just think it's really important. So I wanted to talk about their posture a little bit, and you can see how he's standing. Posture is basically the body's proprioception, response to the position in space, and it's really important to hoof care to have good posture because it allows them to stand fully over their feet. So what I'm looking at when I am working on a horse is, I'm going to flip the camera around. What I'm looking at when I am assessing a horse for hoof balance, is how square they can stand on their limbs from the side, so from this angle, and then also from the front. And he's just going to model his walking around for us right now. And why I feel like that's so important is because that gives neural feedback to their brain about their balance, and also it helps a lot with their mind. So if you have a horse that might be extra spooky, or always has certain tendencies under saddle, to maybe not bend properly and stuff, this might actually be a neural feedback loop that's involved with their hoof balance and also their body balance. So in order to Rehab Mr. Ollie to be riding sound, and barefoot, I have to really take in mind his posture and also think about how I can support that with the hoof care. So right now he's kind of standing like he normally does. He's up on a concrete berm, but he always tends to kind of bring his hind legs up under his belly. His front legs stay pretty even most of the time, but I see this a lot with long toes, and you can even see on this hind foot right now. With long toes, the horse tends to stand with their legs up under their belly because they're compensating for toe pain. He's scratching his leg right now. They're compensating for that toe pain, and then they get really low heels and they can get super sore in their back. So again, we've got more of that neural feedback loop going on. So when I pull the shoes off, I'm going to make a pretty big toe correction. All right, so just taking a look at his posture here, he has a hard time standing square, which I think is like my version of standing square is having all of their cannon bones vertical, all of their legs vertical, and standing nice and balanced with their four legs on each corner of a square. Okay, and here I'm actually picking out a hoof material called Equipack. He came with it in his feet, and the person I got him from said that like she asked and that they put it in because they didn't know if he'd be sore because they threw some shoes on him. He had been turned out in the pasture for I think 3 years and didn't have a lot of hoof care, so they didn't know if he would be sore or not. But I was noticing that the Equipack had a lot of dirt underneath it and it was trapping rocks and stuff, but I felt like it was just not comfortable anymore. So here I'm picking out the other foot and just pulling all the Equipack out. And I just did this for his comfort. I would have removed it all at once if I were removing the shoes this day, but I decided to leave them on just because I like to make sure that the hoof has enough growth underneath the shoe before I pull them off because that will minimize the chances of them being sore. So I decided to leave them on for at least a week longer after I picked him up. And another thing I want to point out also is that when you have any sort of like sole covering like this, there can be a high chance of fungal infection. So I was actually checking for that too while I was looking in this foot, but I didn't seem to see any. And I also noticed something interesting about this foot. The shoe is smaller in the back, and I'm not a shoer, so I'm guessing this was to support the foot more. But now that the Equipack is out, it's actually not doing its job anymore. So I'm really looking forward to getting these shoes off. And I also took note of the balance of his feet when I was holding them up. So this one, the heels are actually quite imbalanced. One of them's longer than the other, which you'll see in a second. There we go. And if I were going to have him shot, I probably would have left that stuff in there, but because I'm pulling his shoes, I was like, we can just take it out. I don't want it to trap any more bacteria and potentially cause thrush. It's fine. I'm gonna pull his shoes next week, I think. I'm gonna get the back of his foot too. So if you look closely, you can see that that inside heel is quite longer than the other one. So I am really looking forward to getting these shoes off. And he also kind of has a dish in his wall in the front of his foot. So it will be interesting to see what they look like without the shoes on and see what's really going on in there. And his hinds didn't have the Equipack in it. And I'm pretty sure he threw this shoe previously, so this one has been done more recently than the other three. It's either this one or the right hind. So that also plays a factor in my decision to leave the shoes on for longer, because here his heels are quite low and his frog would be high centered if I were to pull this shoe off right now. And some horses are okay with that, but for the sake of his rehab, I wanted to really make sure that he would be set up for success. So I wanted him to grow out some more heel before I go ahead and pull those shoes off. All right, now that that foot is all clean, you can see just how much frog would be above the heel if I took these shoes off. And I can trim the frog down, but I really prefer not to. So again, I just wanted to leave these shoes on and let them grow out. But he does have a really long toe on this foot. And when I was pinching back there, he has quite a limp digital cushion back there. And I feel like that happens a lot in steel shoes. It's pretty common, but I also see it with barefoot, and I anticipate that it will get more plump back there once we get the shoes off and he's able to move more. And I feel like you can really see how long that toe is from this angle. Like, I'm really excited to make the change and fix that to just really stand his hoof back up again. And also, as from the front, like you can see that he's got flaring, which is common on hinds. They won't ever be perfectly symmetrical, but it's still not good for them to be that bad. And then same with his fronts, especially his right front. It just really looks like something wonky is going on. All right, and now is his movement. So I had noticed quite a few things about his movement when we went to pick him up, but one of the biggest things is that he was always toe first on his right front, and he was always kind of flat on the left front. And with a barefoot horse, it's important for them to get a slightly heel first landing, not an increased heel first landing, but slightly enough to where they are loading their weight while they're walking properly, because they have structures inside of their feet that allow them to dissipate kinetic energy, and it actually allows their legs to function like a pendulum. So these structures with steel shoes are not being supported, and they're actually sometimes being pushed through the back of the shoe, which is not good. So I also noticed something interesting with his movement, that he has a lot harder of a time circling to the left, which we'll see in a moment. This is actually his good side, and I still feel like his circles are kind of wonky. So now he's going to the other direction, and you can see that he has an even harder time keeping the circle on this side, and he's going to have a much harder time trotting in a second. And he also pokes his nose kind of inward instead of turning his head, because I really want them to turn their head at the base of their pole. And I also feel like he's much shorter on his left hind on this side. So this is all just really good information for me to have with the trim and the rehab. And I also feel like a lot of this is due to tooth balance and also not having the proper biomechanical training to help with his natural asymmetries. So sometimes I don't feel like this type of thing is necessarily a foot problem, because he's not really sore on any of them. And when he does trot, he still has a decent amount of suspension, which is good. So I will be looking for that as well with taking the shoes off and making sure there's no changes. And here it took a lot of pressure to get him to trot. But you can see he's still got a decent amount of suspension with each stride. Each of his feet has a little bit of hang time, and he's not dragging any of them unless he runs into a dirt pile right there. I'm also really looking forward with Ollie here to getting his feet a lot more comfortable for him, because he does move really well, all things considering, with all of the compensations that he has going on in his body. And it's just really fun to take a horse that is like somewhat sound but could be better, and to just completely transform them and give them comfortable feet, because I think we owe it to them, you know, if we're going to be expecting them to be our partners and to literally carry us, they deserve to have comfortable feet, because we all know how annoying painful feet are, whether you just have a blister or if you have plantar fasciitis. You know, it's just, I think it's a good thing for them, you know. And I also want to give the caveat that I'm not anti-shoe. I actually do use composite shoes in my practice, but I do find an issue with the open-backed steel shoes, which are the traditional shoes that we put on horses, simply because it puts a lot of load on the outside of the hoof. And as a barefoot trimmer, I believe that horses should be loading their feet on their sole and their hoof wall, and even their frog in some cases, because every single other animal on the planet walks on the soles of their feet, and I think horses should as well. And it just seems to me like the nail holes don't really support a good, healthy hoof capsule. And I just really want horses to have feet that fit them the best. Like, that is always my goal. My business name is all about sustainable balance, and that is what I'm trying to provide with the hoof care that I'm doing as well. And I think part of an ethical rehab is supporting the hoof if they are tender. So like using something like boots or glue-ons or casting or even form a hoof. And there's like tons of other orthotic type things that you can do that aren't just nailing a steel shoe on, that support the horse more. All right, and that is all I have for you today. I am so looking forward to the actual rehab and pulling off of his shoes. I'm not going to be sharing the trim on YouTube, but I will be creating a separate video that shows exactly how I trim a hoof once I've pulled the shoes off on my basic hoof care course for horse owners. So if you are really interested and want to see all of the nuts and bolts and logistics of how I trim, I would highly recommend you sign up for that. And I think it's a good thing for all horse owners to have the knowledge of a healthy hoof. Even if you're not going to be trimming them full time, it's really important to be able to see if your horse has healthy feet or unhealthy feet, and if their balance is good, if their posture is good. And it's only going to serve you and your horse if you have more knowledge. So anyway, I will leave that link in the comments below, and also you can check it out right here. And I hope that you all have a good day, and thank you so much for watching.